a day. And very soon we will have our very big celebrity, a town crier, to start us off. Sarah Thursfield here is our expert who has done workshops for us before, and if you'd like to put your corset round.
It's not
a 5-year-old.
Yes, this is a 5-year-old one from the late 18th century, cutting out apparel for the poor. And this is what we're starting from, is this very simple form of stays, not the fashionable heavily bound things, but enough to keep you upright and comfortable. There's always one, isn't there? Yeah. So that is your objective, is to see if you can complete a slightly larger version, hand stitch, of a stay in a day.
I shall pop outside and then join you all. Oh, yay! My lord, ladies and gentlemen, be it known that the Shrewsbury Flaxmill is today organising a Stay in the Day community project. So ladies, if you are ready, get staying!
Which meant that 4 of them had to work together, which was probably a lot better than certain people can do. But yes, they've managed to cut it out using 2 bits. Somebody was saying downstairs that you only did it once because you only have 1 pair of stays, which is a good reason not to put on any weight, isn't it? Because then you'd have to spend a long time.
They really must.
Well,
yes.
everything did, didn't it?
Yes. But then they did wear their corsets over their shift, which our mum Mary's wearing. Right. So it was the shift that took all the bodily fluids on account of there wasn't anything under that, including underwear, including heads. Late 1700s, early 1800s. But the corsets were worn over the shift, which is why our model downstairs is wearing a shift. So yes, it would have been small. The main building was 1796, and I believe there was a dye house at that point. Most dye houses were, quite rough buildings on the back and fell down. But this is built in 1850s, which, as you will now know,
coincides with the introduction of synthetic dye.
This is what I was thinking. They built this hugely important, very, very well built Victorian building, because of chemical dyes. But in fact, chemical dyes came in 1856, and this was built in 1850, so it would have been natural dyes that were used here.
Yes.
We don't have a lot of information as such what they used, but we do know from some research up at Leeds at the Brotherton Museum that they would have been imported, the dyes and ornaments. Yeah, so we've got like four pairs making a stay in a day.
Yes.
So a stay was?
A stay was what is commonly known now as a corset or a pair of corsets.
A pair of corsets?
A pair of corsets when it's got lacing at the front and the back.
Okay, makes sense.
Goes back to the pair of bodies in
Right.
the 16th century.
Right, I did hear the term corset came when we followed France and
Yes.
French.
Well, in the 19th century we adopted all sorts of French words because you couldn't really go talking about women's underwear. It was embarrassing, so
Right.
the smock became the chemise and the stays became the corsets.
So.
It will sound nicer, but they'd have called it a stay or
Yes.
a pair of stays.
And of course today they're hand stitching, so we'll be very surprised even as pairs that are finished, because hand stitching, certainly fine hand stitching, and hand stitching the eyelets, with making holes without the stilettos, is quite very time consuming.
What struck me watching everyone starting work is the difference between sewing for a living and sewing for the fun of it, because they're working.
They're supposed to be working hard.
Yeah, well, they are sewing steadily, but they are sewing quite slowly. And I look and think, yes, if I were setting out to do this, I would be going 3 times that speed. And I forget that.
Yes.
That you have to adjust mentally if you're actually going to produce something to a time, to a deadline.
Yeah, but we have discussed the fact that they wouldn't have been having perhaps the deadline unless they were doing it professionally. Certain stitchers would have been making their own. And
They
they
may
have
have
had
been,
so
yes.
many clothes, so that they wouldn't have been. We've had long discussions upstairs about smelly people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But the whole point about wearing cotton and linen is that you're not so smelly because you can wash it.
Well, yeah, but how often did they wash it?
Interestingly, there was one of the papers I heard over the weekend was on this very question, because Daniel Defoe, wonderful grumpy journalist, said, yes, it's all very well saying that servants are cleaner now they're wearing print frocks, but has anyone thought about the cost to their mistresses in soap and washing their frocks?
Right.
But he said the evidence suggests that yes, actually, your good household servant did expect to wash her print frock every week or 2.
Yes.
Which was a
Whereas
huge
today,
change from the
yeah.
old stuffed gown that never got washed
Yes.
at all.
Yeah.
And the leather stays.
So some early 1800s,
were replaced by the
we
cotton
are
linen.
getting a bit less smelly.
We are less smelly. But
Excellent.
remember, the function of your chemise is to be the first year shift, is to be the barrier and get washed.
Goes over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And then your
why
head down.
the corset is always over the chemise, so the corset doesn't need washing.
Yes. So we are hoping by the end of today to have one that may not be finished, but will fit around me.
It's possible.
Possibly.
It's possible.
Yeah. With maybe a bit of tucking in. So that's what.
Well, if we haven't, we'll just have to fit you into the 5-year-old ones.
Thank you.
Yes. We will ask for a volunteer to put her foot in the small of your back and pull them tight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, girls. If you choose to take your 1 hour's lunch break starting from now, you have 3.5 hours to finish your stay in a day. I can hear a lot of enthusiasm. Who's going to get finished?
Nobody.
Nobody. Who's going to get to the point where you can at least put one on my body?
Right.
Cheating with no pins.
Yeah,
please.
with pins, possibly.
Okay, right. Okay, so do feel free to take an hour break.
We'll try. We won't.
The making everything for yourself is one of those great myths. And throughout history, you've probably paid a specialist to make it for you. The exception is the linens, the shirts and smocks and things get done or are likely to get done at home, but there have been a lot more professional sewing women from the Middle Ages onwards than most people realise. Seamstresses and laundresses, the unsung underpinnings of society.
And tailoresses.
Well, the tailor's wife could be every bit as skilled as he was, but she didn't get the credit. Because the working unit was seen as the craftsman and his family and his apprentices. So, yeah, you know, the tailor's wife and daughters could probably actually do the job. They could certainly sew.
Well, our grandmother was a tailoress, but she didn't do a tailor's kind of job. I mean, basically, she and her mother used to go to a sort of outwork facility and get all the bits that had already been cut out and then assemble them at home and then take them all back, take the completed garments back. So, in fact, she wasn't really learning tailoring skills.
No, she was what in medieval terminology would have been called a shepster. Yeah, she was the sewing hand, because the derivation of tailor is tailler, which is to cut. And the reason the tailor had all that prestige was because he knew how to cut things out in fancy shapes. Seamstresses were good, but they just cut the sort of very simple T-shapes and gores. They didn't fit the body. And the tailor knew the mystery of cutting. And then once he cut it out, anyone could sew it together. So when he was busy, there was all this sort of very shadowy army of the women outworkers. And your grandmother was just, you know, one of the later ones of them.
Well, she started.
Can I just interrupt? You had 7 minutes before you need to somehow or other make it look like a garment.
Well, what I suggest you all do, what I suggest we get each group to do, is you lay the pieces out, front, backs, straps, and we see them like that.
We had 10 o'clock this morning to make a stay in the day. We started off with pairs, we ended up with 3 people, and we haven't done it. Which is excellent, because it does show how time-consuming sewing clothes was until sewing machines came in, certainly 1800s, 1850s, what the period we're doing. People have worked exceptionally hard. We've learned some new sewing skills. We've learned about stays. Now, as you know, this is not competitive. However, I do have certificates, and I have one for Erica. We have discussed this briefly. Erica, this is your certificate for, well, all of you get a certificate for coming, but for getting your head down, really getting on. We have one for Dan, and but being the only one, I think I'm the one that sewed a seam that didn't need to be sewed, so well done with that. Also for seam, we have one for Wendy, who's, I think, and I am told, that her sewing stitches are absolutely beautiful.
Commendation for that.
Get good at it one day.
Oh, sorry, I'm giving these out. I'm tired. Okay, walk out. Wendy.
Right. Wendy.
For Sue, who has actually worked out how to knit the lacings. So we thought that's quite important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
I should provide some later.
Sally has to be the Queen of the Islands because she was doing such a brilliant job there, getting them done.
Queen of the Islands. I don't agree with that.
Penny.
Penny, we have a penny. Yes.
Penny for learning, for remembering how to sew. And for Rose for being the cavalry and coming in and helping out.
Well done.
Reasons for that. For Sue, who I believe upstairs, all on their Todd, worked out after there was a bit of a blunder, no mentions named, on the amount of fabric, how to get it out of the fabric very quickly. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have one more. Well, I will print you one out, Abby. So just but as you actually knew, there were going to be certificates.
Yeah.
So it was like that. However, we do have. Who has won the golden thimble?
Are we going to have doom music?
And the tension
And the
is
winner
clear.
is. Announcing reverse order.
Who has won? The person who has won the golden thimble has done an excellent job today. Excellent stitcher, has also done a lot of stuff in the past, but she's also done a lot for this day in terms of, would you like to hold that? There's another one. She only gets a symbol, she gets a box.
All right.
In terms of getting Malting in publicity. So I will do a certificate, Abby, but you win the golden thimble. Busy today doing
I can't get it off my finger.
This is something that's
It's so little more.
where's the box back?
Ah, right. Okay.
And last but
It is,
who hasn't sewn at all today, told us the wrong amount of fabric, has survived everything, kept us going, managed to get these. I mean, it's going to be incredible when they're done. I can't wait to be wearing mine. So I think well deserved. I completed the challenge to get 4 pairs of stitchers to hand stitch an 18th century. 1800s course. If you notice, none of them says finished. So Sarah, would you take a golden thimble prize?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for making it such a fun and productive and interesting day. Telling me about your gran.
Okay, big clap for Martin and Patrick and
Everyone needs to take cake away with them, don't they? If everyone takes the cake they didn't bring, then you get a treat.
Why don't we just have tea and cake and then go?
One.
And here we have the finished day. It's taken 3 sewers, 6 weeks, but rather nice and rather well fitting. We hope to have the other ones soon, so come along to the Flaxmill and see us.